In this exercise, I'm going to demonstrate how to make agar plates for growing bacterial colonies. Let's take a look at the materials. First, locate the microwave. Microwave should be in the side benches in your lab. Then you should be able to find some of these right at your benches. The balance, whey paper, agar, and LB powder. Then on the cart, you should be able to locate aliquots of ampicillin, labeled AMP, arabinose, labeled ARA, the microcentrifuge rack. Make sure you take 8 of the petri dishes, and then also the biohazard liquid waste beaker. At your bench, you should also have the usual, the micropipettes, the tips, and your Sharpie. Okay, with these material, we're ready to begin. Let's start in step 1. Step 1, you're going to use your Sharpie and label your petri plates. Now, you should have 8, and as listed, you're going to label 2 of them LB. And remember to label on the edge. The reason being your colony is going to grow in the middle and you want to be able to see them. So I got 2 LB, 4 labeled LB amp, and then 2 labeled LB amp era. I'm all set. Next, let's move on to step 2, where we weigh out 2.5 gram of LB powder and then 1.5 gram of agar into the 500 ml flask. First, we're going to fold the whey paper again. Then we're going to tare it to make sure it's 0.00 gram. Use a spatula. Scoop LB powder until the whey reads 2.5. Okay, now that we have 2.5 grams of LB powder, we can easily pick this up and pour it into our 500 ml flask. Make sure all the powder goes in. You can flick it a little bit. Okay, and then we'll move on to weighing out the agar. Same thing. Take the whey paper, fold it in half. Ensure it is 0.00 gram. Take the agar. Now we want 1.5 grams. So let's go for 1.5 gram. Okay, 1.5 gram. And then we're going to do the same thing. Pour it into the 500 ml flask. Flick it a little bit. Make sure everything is in. Okay, and then now we'll need to add 100 ml water into it. So locate the graduated cylinder and then find the carboy by the sink. And then make sure you get the right amount at 100 right at the eye level. Okay, pour it into the 500 ml beaker. You're going to then swirl it around. You're not going to see everything go into the solution, and that is totally fine. Next, we're going to take paper towels from the side of the sink, 4 of them, wet it, and make sure to squeeze out excess water. You don't want to be dripping wet. You just want to wet it, fold it in 4s, cover the top of the flask. This will keep everything inside sterile. So we're going to microwave it because the heat is going to dissolve the agar and the LB powder. So don't worry that it's not in the solution. Also, it's going to make this whole thing sterile. That means any bacteria that was in the water is going to be killed, and this will be completely sterile. No bacteria will be in there, so our bacteria can then grow on there without competition. Okay, so we'll start by setting it at 1 minute. And your goal is to be able to find an angle that you can actually, I know my reflection is in there, but you should be able to see the flask and whether the water bubbles up. And you want to prevent the bubble from bubbling over, so you're going to keep an eye on it. Okay, usually when there is about 5 seconds left, 4, 3, it will start to bubble. Okay, and then if it did not bubble up, you can stop it and then do another minute. And then now really watch closely, because now the temperature is really high. It's going to start foaming like this. You got to be ready to stop at any time. So I can see it foaming now, but it's not foaming up so much that I need to stop it. Okay, right now I'm seeing it foaming. I'm gonna stop it. Okay, and it's going to subside and not boil over. Now, I want you to grab more paper towel. So, because it's gonna be really hot, or you can use the glove by it. Take the flask out and then swirl it a little bit, okay, to make sure that whatever is residual in there gets better, but it's still really opaque, you see. So we're going to put it back, leave the wet paper towel on, okay? And yes, that wet paper towel is also really hot, so be careful. And then start back again, and then be sure to have your finger on the stop and watch the flask, because again, you don't want it to boil over, but you want it to boil enough that the temperature is high and the powder will go in the solution. It's boiling again, but I don't see it boil over just yet. So I'm gonna keep an eye on there. Okay, now I am 2 minutes in. It's quite nicely cleared, as you can see. So the next step is, again, have a thick paper towel to insulate and check, okay? And if it is clear, which I now see, it's very clear, then the process is complete. Double check that it is yellowish transparent. There shouldn't be any chunks in there. That means everything is dissolved. And then now you can let it cool down for 5 minutes. Now after 5 minutes, you should be able to touch it without being burnt. But we're still going to use a paper towel to kind of insulate us. So grab like 2 of them, put it in a long strip, fold it in half, and this should be able to insulate you. Now we're going to do what's called a sterile technique to pour plates. So right now there's only LB broth and agar in here. So we're going to start with the LB plates to begin with. Use your left hand, take off the wet paper towel, but that's going to expose the liquid inside. So by now, don't talk as you're doing the pouring. Another thing is you want to be at the edge of your bench, not in the, on the bench. It's mainly because when you pour, you want some space for you to do this pour like this. Instead of high up on the table and trying to pour, then it's a big distance. It makes pouring not so fluid. Go to the edge. Okay, these are the 2 LBs. I'm gonna flip them over because now I want the top lid on top. Use your left hand, open it, use your right hand, hold it, and then open the lid. And as you pour, once the liquid goes through, covers half of it, you're good. That's all you need, okay? And then close it. Then move on to the other 4, which is LB amp. Now with LB amp, you need to add ampicillin. This is again the antibiotics, and then we want to pipette 0.8 mils. So think about what 0.8 mils means in microliter. Grab the right one, dial it correctly, get a tip, and then now you're going to take the ampicillin, do 0.8 milliliter, put it into the flask, dispose of the pipette, swirl it, make sure you swirl it smoothly, do not create bubble, and then we're going to pour the plate again. We're going to flip it over, make sure we have the 4 ready, okay? Open the lid, hold it to the side, and then pour. Partners should take turns doing this to get a feel of how to do this, okay? Cover again. And then the last bit is we need to add arabinose. Double check how much arabinose do you need? Can we pipette 1.5 mils? If not, how can we separate it into 2 times? Okay, double check, think through it. And then grab the arabinose. I am going to pipette twice with $750 microliter once, and then another time because and then eject, because 750 plus 750 is 1,500, which gives me 1.5 mils. Again, do this motion on the table because you don't want it to create bubbles, so nothing too much. Bring over your plate for LB arabinose, flip it over, use your left hand, open the lid, go to the side, pour it, And this time you can be a bit more generous because this is the last bit you need. Okay, and everything is done. Do you have some left? Maybe you do. Make sure to pour it in the liquid waste. Now this time is not because there's bacteria, but because there's agar where we don't want it going down the drain. So make sure you pour what's left in the liquid waste and then rinse the flask immediately and brush it, so then it's easier for lab assistant to come back and clean it later. You can leave these plates in a secure place on your bench, and then make sure you clean out the flask and also use a brush to clean out the balance, and definitely move on to the transformation part of the lab.